Look, guys, let's be honest. Renting right now in Salt Lake City is better than purchasing a home. Unless you consider these couple of things when it comes to buying a home, you should be better off renting a home right now. Yes, I am a real estate agent, and yes, I do help hundreds of people relocate here to the area, as well as who already live here, buy, sell, and invest in real estate. And I do love my part of the job, but I got to be honest right now with where the market's at and how things are going with prices and interest rates and everything else. Renting right now in Utah looks pretty favorable. But when you strictly look at the numbers, what it costs to rent a place versus what it would cost to buy that same place and what your mortgage would be, even with a 10 or 20% down payment, oftentimes the rent amount for that property is going to be a better option in the long term when it comes to strictly dollar for dollar. So there are some things you have to consider. If you're looking at buying a home, there are still benefits. There are still things that are going to be beneficial for people out there. So it might still make sense to purchase a home, but if you're just looking for the cheapest option possible, you want ease and you don't want to have to deal with the headache of, going through the process and working with the market right now, then renting could be a good option. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons to each of these different things. So number one, when it comes to this is yes, if you do buy a place, you're not going to have to pay rent, right? I think a lot of people underestimate how much it actually costs to rent a place. Let's say you're renting a place for, let's say $3,000 a month. You're going to spend $36,000 over the next 12 months to rent that place. If you are purchasing a home, you're going to be able to lock in an interest rate and a purchase price today, and then you're going to start paying down a loan, right? So some of that monthly payment that you make is going to go to mostly interest right now, especially with where interest rates are, but you're going to also pay down the loan during that time as well. So it's not going to offset the total $36,000 cost that you pay. You are going to pay a little bit more, but now you're paying down the loan, right? You might be paying $500 to $1,000 a month down on that loan every single time you make a payment. So after the course of about, let's say 12 months, you've now paid down that loan somewhere between, let's say $8,000 to $12,000. Now, again, that doesn't offset the cost, but it is just one of those benefits you have to consider. And on that note, because you are paying so much interest, that additional payment that you're making that goes towards that interest every month, you're going to at least be able to write that off and you're not going to have to pay the taxes on it. Now, I'm not a tax professional. I'm just a real estate guy who loves talking about real estate and loves helping people through this process. But you should know that you're going to be able to write off some of that interest that you pay, and that's going to help you on the tax side. So not only are you just paying that interest, you don't have to worry about it just going straight down the drain. You're going to be able to write that off, and that's going to help you on your taxes that you have to pay at the end of the year. Thereby, another benefit, right? If you take these two things, if you take down what you're paying down on the principal, as well as what you're gaining in tax benefits, this can actually add up to a point where it could offset the difference in what you're paying for rent versus for a mortgage. Another benefit to buying a home versus renting a place is you actually get a place to call your own, right? You don't have to worry about working with a landlord. You don't have to worry about, not being able to paint the walls the color you want or change the kitchen or update the bathroom how you like it. You get to call that place your own and you get to make changes to it however you see fit. If something breaks, you can either just leave it or you could fix it right away, right? You don't have to deal with a landlord and them being cheap about fixing it or taking forever or just ignoring you or anything like that. You get to take care of the issue when it comes up. Yes, you do have to pay for that, but you get to take care of it at your own speed. So if you like having control, you like being able to make your own decisions on the property, then that can be, again, another benefit to buying versus renting here in this market. Next up, the other thing I want to talk about is appreciation. Now, typically when the market is going up, everybody says, hey, you're going to get appreciation, right? You might pay $500 for the home, but now it's going to be worth $600 in just a couple of years. I do think there's higher risk with that, especially right now. There is a good chance that prices will come down, but there's also a fair amount of chance that prices will actually go up. Prices have been largely unchanged over the last 6 months. If you've watched any of my other videos here on the channel, you'll know that prices really haven't changed over the last 6 months. And that's despite interest rates climbing from about 6% all the way up to 8%. So prices have remained here, interest rates have gone here. Now, you would think in theory that even if interest rates came back down to 6%, we might actually see prices, stay the same because that's what they did before. But I actually think that there's a chance that if interest rates come back down, maybe to 7%, 6.5%, maybe even down to 6%, fingers crossed, right? That does happen for the buyers out there in the market. I actually think we could see prices climb and go up. Now, that's not any guarantee, right? You can't really plan on what's going to happen in the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter, right? If you're purchasing a home, whether it's for yourself or it's an investment, you really have to look long term. You can't plan on making a purchase on a home and then saying, well, I'm going to sell it in 12 months. Even if you are or you aren't, the price that happens in 12 months is a little bit irrelevant, right? Because for most people, they're not going to sell their home in 12 months, right? It might be nice to say, oh yeah, I'm going to get, the home's going to be worth more in 12 months, but that doesn't really matter because you're probably not planning on selling the home at that time. If you're in a position where you are going to sell your home in, let's say less than 2 years, absolutely do not buy a home right now. You'd be way better off just renting a home and having the flexibility. But if you plan to hold that home, whether for yourself or as an investment property, and you're going to hold it for 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I know for sure that prices are going to be higher in 10, 15, 20 years down the road than they are today. And that's just a fact, right? So you start capturing all these benefits here today, but then you also get the benefit of knowing that the appreciation of the property will be higher in the future. So I don't think there's necessarily any harm in maybe waiting renting a year. If it makes sense for you and your situation, maybe it does make sense to rent for a year, but don't get caught in the trap of just renting year after year after year and saying, oh, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. At some point, you kind of have to pull the trigger and jump into the market. Yes, there are going to be some downsides. Yes, you might pay a little bit higher price than you want or a little bit higher interest rate than you want, but at least you're jumping into the market and you're getting things rolling. That's the important part about this. When I talk to people from all walks of life, whether it's a first-time home buyer buying their very first place or somebody who's bought and sold, maybe dozens of homes, the thing that everybody always forgets to realize is that getting started with even just that first property is the biggest step you can take in being able to start that journey. Now, I don't want to just sound like your cliche realtor who says, oh yeah, buy a place, and is just coming off as a salesman, but it is true. I've seen, a number of people who didn't think they could purchase a home. They went out there, they bought their very first home, and now they've got that ball rolling. And they're paying down the loan. They're getting some tax benefits. And then one day they might be able to actually sell that home, hopefully for more than they bought it for, and take that money and roll it into a new home. And that's going to make that next home even more affordable. The thing that I really want to push home here is just don't get caught in that trap of renting year after year. I actually have a tenant. I want to talk about a story here. I've got a tenant who I've been renting to for about 5 or 6 years now. And they've told me since when they very first moved in, they said, hey, we're going to rent here for a year and then we're going to purchase a home at the end of our lease, right? And I said, okay, great. Let me know how I can help you. I'll help you through that process. If you want to work with me, I'd love to be your real estate agent. And I'll help you buy a place. I'll be flexible on your rental. And they just never did it, right? This was back like 2017, 2018. They never did it. They never pulled the trigger. The next year rolled around. They renewed their lease. And same thing. They said, yeah, we're going to buy at the end of our lease. They never did it. And now it's been 5 or 6 years that they've been telling me this every single year. They're going to buy a place. And they just never have. And now they're just priced out of the market. In the meantime, their rent has continued to go up, which admittedly has been a little bit good for me as a landlord. But, the rents continue to go up. Prices have gone up. Interest rates have gone up. And now they're kind of in a stuck situation where they probably can't purchase, right? Because it's just so incredibly expensive now compared to where it was 5 years ago, that now they're kind of in this spot. So I'm not saying that to say for sure that right now is a better time than in 5 years from now. Maybe it will be. Who really knows, right? Nobody has a crystal ball. But what I'm saying is just get started and get the process going. Now, there's one other thing I want to give you an example on because I think this is a big, important part. I've actually talked to a lot of people who are sitting on a bunch of cash and are looking to make a cash purchase here in the next little bit. Right now, cash transactions make up about 30% of overall transactions in the market. So that's about 1 out of 3 purchases is going to be an all cash purchase. Let's just give you an example here, right? Let's say you purchase a home for $700,000 cash today, or at least you're looking at a home, right? Maybe it's listed at 700, you negotiate a little bit off the price and you get it down to 680. You're buying that home for 680 today. Now, on the flip side, let's say that you decided to wait a year. You're going to rent a place for a year and then purchase with your cash a year down the road, hopefully when prices come down. Maybe prices come down to, let's say, $650 on that same $700,000 home. So now you're saving $50,000 off the price. But on the flip side, you've also had to rent for a year. You had to rent a property for a year. Let's say you paid $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, dollars a month in rent. Let's just say $3,000, be on the conservative side. You've now paid $36,000 a month in rent to just purchase that same exact home for basically the same exact price. But you missed out on some of the other potential things about the property. You missed out on being able to call the place your own, move in, not have to worry about it, and not have to think about going through the market and going through this whole process, and also watching the market during that 1 year time frame where you're living in the rental property. When it comes to purchasing property, obviously it's going to be a financial decision. The finances are going to make up, probably 90% of what most people think about, right? Is, hey, can I afford this? But you also have to consider the non-financial aspect of it as well. You have to consider your lifestyle. How much do you spend thinking about this? You have to consider, is this going to put you in the right spot? Is this going to get you into the area and into the home that you want to live in? Is this going to be something that you think about, right? If you're thinking about real estate, if you're thinking about buying a home, you're watching the market, you're spending all this time on it, that's a lot of time that could be better spent, maybe doing hobbies or spending time with family or working on your career, making more money, doing these other things, right? So you have to consider those non-financial aspects of not purchasing a home today versus doing that process and purchasing today. The reality here, guys, is that prices really haven't dropped, and there's no saying that they will drop or they won't drop. There's going to be a lot of different changes coming over the next couple of months. We're going into the seasonality of winter. Prices do generally drop during this time. Inventory drops during this time, and we see a lot of buyers drop out of the market. So right now, we're actually going into a period where there could be opportunity. If you're looking at purchasing a home, I don't know, maybe wait a month, maybe wait 2 months. It really comes down to you and your financial bottom line, as well as what makes the most sense for you on a lifestyle basis. Maybe it does make sense for you to purchase now, or maybe it makes sense to rent. I don't know. That's a conversation that we need to have. So if you're considering that, please reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you, whether you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate and you're moving from out of state or across the world, or you're coming, or you already live here, right here in our own backyard of Salt Lake. I would love to help you. I'd love to have that conversation with you. My information will be here on the screen, so please reach out. I love when people do, and I love helping people through this process. And there's two last things that I have to mention here because I don't see other people talking about this, and I don't think this is a widely understood thing here in the market today. So remember how we were talking about the prices here, and interest rates were here at 6%. We saw interest rates climb to 7% and then to 8%. Prices have really remained flat. I think that we could actually see if interest rates come down, I think we could actually see prices climb because inventory is low. I think that if those interest rates start coming back down, there's a lot of buyers who have been sitting on the sidelines waiting for this to happen. They backed out of the market, but as soon as those interest rates come down, now they jump back into the market, and that causes demand on the prices and pushes those prices higher. So that could happen. I'm not using that as a fear tactic to try and get you into, purchasing a home. It's not a sales tactic or anything like that. It's just something to think about, right? When it comes to making a decision like this, you got to think about it from all angles, whether it's a good angle, a bad angle, or anything in between. I'm just here to give you some information and some things to actually think about along the way. The last thing I want to mention is that just remember, prices don't have to go up and they don't have to come down. And same thing with interest rates. Everybody's saying, especially other real estate gurus and YouTubers, they're saying, hey, interest rates have to come down, right? Interest rates have to come down next year or in 2 years or in 3 years. I know a lot of them were saying that was going to happen here in 2023, but it did not, right? Just keep in mind that interest rates and prices do not have to do anything, right? They could actually just stay where they're at. And I think that's actually a fair chance of what could happen with interest rates. I think they'll fluctuate. They always do, maybe up 1%, down 1%, hopefully down in the near future for the pending buyers that are out there. But just keep in mind that they don't have to do anything. There's a good chance that interest rates could stay where they're at, or at least fluctuate around where they're at for maybe the next 12 months, 24 months, maybe even 36 months, depending on what happens in the world overall. So again, just food for thought. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it this far, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and also make sure to reach out to me if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see what makes sense for you. I'm not going to give you a hard pitch. I just want to listen to your story and see how I can give you advice and guidance on what makes the most sense for you. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.